This week's topic will be on family. The reading for this will be on Essentials page 274 through Essentials page 302. In our families discussion, some of the things we'll be talking about will be defining a family, and that consists of what makes up a family. We will talk about how to establish partnerships with our families because we know that for our children to be successful, we really need to be working in partnership with each of those families. How to encourage family participation. In order for children to be super successful in the classroom, it's really important for them to feel support from their family, and one good way to do that is by their family participating in the classroom. We'll need to talk about how to communicate with our families, what are important times, and how to have conversations with them. We'll talk about meeting formally with families because there are times when we need to have a more formal meeting with them as opposed to our day-to-day communication at pickup and drop off. And then how to support our families in their child's development, how to help them to know what their children should be doing and how to help their children to achieve those developmental milestones. When we think of defining a family, what a family is a group of people who share in life, sharing emotional bonds, sharing values, responsibilities, and overall contributing to one another's well-being. Now, for many of us, we think of that nuclear family that once was the majority of family makeups, which was a mom and a dad and their children. In today's society, we know that the family structure has changed, and there are many types of families that exist. And so in your work with children, you're going to encounter a variety of families. And in your textbook on pages 276 and 277, it talks a lot about those various family structures. But what we do know is that where it was once thought that a family was only individuals who were biologically related, our society has grown to accept that a person or people do not have to be biologically related to be thought of as family. Especially where children are concerned, there are often various people who are chosen in their life to support these roles of emotional bonds and responsibilities and caretaking and helping to meet that child's well-being. Sometimes those are people who live with the child, and sometimes they're not even living in the home but take a large role in that child's life. And so in our work with these families, we need to be accepting of the various members of each child's family and the makeup of their family. Let's talk for just a minute about how culture may impact family dynamics. For every family that you encounter in your work with children, there will be various relationships amongst the adults and the children. There may be different expectations for children's learning or behavior. There will be different morals and values being instilled in the children. Each parental role is very unique, and many parents approach their interactions with their children very differently, often based upon their beliefs and their cultural rules, often based upon how they were parented as a child. And even though some of these beliefs and some of these interactions may vary from what our policies and our program wants, or even from our own personal beliefs, we still must treat these families with the utmost respect. Especially when you are discussing the child with the parents, even when you may disagree with them, you're going to want to hear the parent's viewpoint and attempt to understand that so that the two of you can come to an agreement and a middle ground in working with that child so that the child can be as successful as possible. So what you really have to think about are what are some ways that you can offer your various families respect and honor their viewpoint and what they want for their child. On page 279 in your book, it talks about how to establish partnerships with families. And one of the things that you really have to understand is that your relationship with the parents really transforms into a partnership when you are both working to support the child's development. It's really important for a child to become successful in their educational career that the family and the teachers are working together to assist that child. But in order to form a positive partnership, there are some things that have to happen. There has to be a mutual respect happening between both parties in that partnership. There has to be some value placed on one another, even in supporting one another's differences. We have to be able to communicate, to listen, and to talk to each other openly, and to share our thoughts and our ideas. And we really have to be able to confer with each other in making decisions for the child, things that will be in that child's best interest. Something important to note in talking about establishing a partnership, I think it's real important for us to understand that children who feel like there's a strong connection between their family and their caregiver are more likely to build a strong bond with that caregiver because they feel like there is a connection between that person and their family. So there's a sense of security for that child. And so our bond with the family isn't just beneficial to the parents and to us, but it is really beneficial to that child's success. So after talking about establishing partnerships, we have to think about how would we initiate those relationships. In your textbook on page 281, there are some suggestions for ways to start building those relationships. In the very beginning, something that you can do that will really inform the parents about the program is to develop some sort of welcome packet or parent handbook that describes what the program is offering to the family, what the expectations are, what the guidelines are. It may include things about policies and procedures, sick child information, tuition, program hours, all those things that are really important for the families to know. But it may also include what it is we are going to do for the families. It's a good idea, especially with the parent handbook, that there is a form there for the parents to sign saying that not only have they received that, but that they have also read that. You could always hold an open house and invite the families in so that they can see the classrooms and the facility. It's real important in each child's classroom to have a mailbox for their family so that parent newsletters, parent notes, the children's work can all be put in that mailbox so that they know where to look for information that they may need. There could always be an enrollment interview where you can initially meet with the families in the very beginning, a time to fill out all those critical forms that are going to be needed and to share any really important information about that child that the family needs you to know. You could make sure that that's a time when if there are any questions about that enrollment packet, those could be answered. as with any relationship or partnership that you may have, there's always a possibility of conflict occurring. It's real important as you initiate your relationship with the families and you build those partnerships that those are built upon a mutual trust and respect for one another, and that you build the ability for you to communicate openly with these families and to be able to talk about issues or concerns that either of you may have about the child. It is still possible that you may encounter families that for whatever reason you're not able to embrace their personality, or maybe they're not able to embrace yours. And so if that were to occur, it is important that despite the feelings that you may have toward one another personally, that you overcome that and work for the best interest of that child. It may mean that you have to have some more formal communication or meeting just to kind of clear the air and establish those professional boundaries that suggest we are both working for the benefit of this child, and we're going to do what we need to do to help this person be successful. When families begin to understand that you are really genuine and heartfelt and that you really are working for their child, then they will become more accepting and open to you and to what you are working to do. When you start thinking about how to encourage family participation, probably your first responsibility is to make sure that your parents feel welcome in the setting, whether it's if they want to come in and observe or whether they want to participate in the classroom and the activities going on. Of course, some settings like Head Start have a long history of family participation. They actually were given funding based upon those family participation hours, and so it was really important to them to bring in their families and have them volunteer in the classroom. But even our public child care centers and public preschool programs often really want that parent involvement, and it's a really important component in the child's success. And so we want to encourage our families to do this. Now, if you want it to be meaningful participation, sometimes you really have to guide your family. Parents may be nervous or reluctant. They may not feel secure or have the confidence they need to understand that they can work with these children in a meaningful way. And so you have to encourage those family members and give them some ideas on how to be involved and offer support for them until they're comfortable. You can make sure that families have some guidance in what to do when they come into the classroom. So maybe you have a parent volunteer table or cubby or mailbox that has suggestions that they can go there and they can look at that to find things that they can do to be helpful in the classroom. Maybe it's that you just want them to play with the children during free choice time and interact with the children and offer some one-on-one. Maybe you want them to go as far as leading a small group or reading a story to the children. Maybe they're going to sing with them and dance with them or do a gross motor activity. They could eat lunch with the children and sit and communicate with them and enjoy that meal time. Maybe they're going to oversee a project. So if you can give them some guidance and some ideas of what to do while they're with the children, they may see that they can be successful. And once they see the benefit of what they're doing, they are actually surprised and excited to keep offering that assistance and to participate in their child's education in that way. So it's really important that we encourage those families to come in and to share part of their child's um, classroom experience. Um, and so, you can always, um, if a family is not, or a parent is not really comfortable interacting with the children, you could always give them some administrative tasks to do. You could give them some preparation activities to do for things that are coming up in the classroom. Anything that can help them feel like they are contributing to the classroom and to their child's educational setting. One of the most effective ways to build a strong relationship with your families and to really form that partnership is through communication. In order to have an effective partnership, you have to be able to have strong two-way communication. And by two-way, um, we're saying that not only do you talk to the families, but you also listen to the families. That's what makes strong two-way communication. It is also really important that when you're talking with the families, that you make them aware through your conversation that you do not um, view yourself as having all the answers or all the knowledge, or um, that you feel like you know more than that family or that parent knows. It's really important that they feel like that they can contribute to the conversation, and that their ideas are important to you, that their thoughts are important to you. Some ways that you can use to communicate with families might be welcoming mail, which is when a child comes into your classroom, a welcoming letter for that family. There's always opportunities to communicate at drop off and at pickup. Many caregivers, teachers communicate with their families either through phone calls or emails, where you can get responses without having to have face-to-face time. It's really important in communication and being able to give the entire group of families that you work with lots of insight into the classroom, that you would do either a weekly or bi-weekly newsletter, and in that newsletter share what's happening in the classroom, activities, new songs, upcoming events, community events. That's really important to keep your parents aware and connected to what's going on in the classroom. There's always a parent note or parent letter for an individual parent when you feel like you need to share some information with that family. Lots of centers and classrooms have now gone to having a website, and of course that's very effective to keep parents abreast on what's happening in the room or what's happening in the center. Your textbook talks about a few other options of ways to communicate. One of them, which I really think is a good way to communicate about a child's progress and what their work is by doing children's portfolios. And those are just portfolios where you accumulate children's work, and then you could let them take those home and share with their family all the great things that they're learning and doing in the classroom. But being able to be a good communicator, a good listener, a good talker with your families, highly improves the quality of care that you're able to give to your children, because when you're talking and listening with those families, you're working together to find all the best things to do for that child, and you're able to meet any concerns that the families have or any needs that you feel like you have in working with that child. And so communication is a key to being successful in your work with these children and families. One of the really important ways that you can share information with your families, um, if your families come into your classroom or to your program on a daily basis for drop off and pickup, it's a really good idea to have what's known as a parent board. Lots of centers have one for the center, but I still suggest that you have one for your individual classroom. It needs to be near the entryway where the parents are going to see it in an obvious location. All the way across the room isn't necessarily a good place because often the parents will not go all the way across the classroom. They come in, right at the doorway or to the um, cubbies if they're there, and even just right inside of the classroom. And so the parent board should be somewhere near. Needs to be labeled parent information board, and it needs to look appealing. The information on there needs to be pertinent to your families. Things like your program newsletter or classroom newsletter, your lesson plan, your menu, your ratios, parenting tips, child development information, such as developmental milestones, or these are things children should be working on at this age. Maybe a new song that you're singing or a classroom activity that would be good to do at home. You could put community events coming up that your parents might be interested in. You can change information, things that you think are really important right now, and then in another month switch it up and put some new information up there about things that would be interesting and of use to your families. This is a really important way for you to communicate with your families, and so you want to keep this fresh and updated and right there where your parents can view it. There are several times in your work with a family that you may need to have a formal meeting with the parents or the family. There are a few means for you to do this. One way is a home visit. Often these will happen before the child initially comes into the classroom environment. These home visits are exceptionally good at allowing you to become acquainted for the family and to get to know that child's home life and help to gain a perspective and a feel for that child's home setting. These visits are often really good at lessening a child's anxiety and helping to ease the transition from home to your classroom setting. And it gives you a great understanding of the values in the home and the child rearing practices that both play a role in that child's personality and behavior and development and so forth. Once the child is in the classroom, you may feel a need for a parent educator or parent teacher conference. Some programs have regular parent teacher conferences at various intervals throughout the year, and it's a time for every family to meet with the children's teacher and talk about the child's development and the things going on in the classroom and any concerns and the progress that the child is making. There could be the need for a special parent-teacher conference when there are concerns or behavior issues, or even that a child is progressing at a quicker pace and we need to decide what we need to do to help keep that child engaged and interested in the classroom. It's real important when you're doing these parent educator conferences that you make sure that you're giving the parents options of times that are convenient for them, and that you have an agenda for the meeting, that you know what you need to do, and that you focus on what you really are needing to communicate with this family. It's also real important when you're trying to follow that agenda that you are staying positive with this family. Because when we go in with a really negative attitude and we're telling the parents all the things that the child can't do or all the behaviors that are negative that the child is exhibiting, then we put a wall between us and that parent. We need a comfortable setting for conducting the parent-child conference. It's real important to have some privacy, a room with a door, with adult-sized table and chairs, so that you can be comfortable while you're communicating. When you begin that conference, it's really imperative that you start on a positive note. Any things that you would need to say about a child's progress not being where you feel like it should be, or anything you would need to say about negative behavior, that needs to come in the middle. And then at the end of the parent conference, you need to make sure that you end on a positive note. Always give these parents uplifting information about their child. You know how it is yourself if you have children of your own or in your work environment. If all you hear from your personal children's teachers or all you hear from your employer are negative things, then it's hard to feel like you can be successful, and it's hard to feel like you've been accepted. And parents are the same way about their children. It's also really aware or important that you be aware of any cultural considerations. Earlier in this discussion, we talked about how cultural rules and cultural things will affect our child rearing values. And so we need to be aware of that and understand that some of those things come from cultural considerations. And then you really want to make sure that your families understand that the whole purpose of this meeting is to promote the best interest of the child. It's for you and that parent to help that child become as successful as they possibly can. Make sure you're listening to the family, listening to their ideas, their suggestions, their concerns. And when you're talking with them and you're sharing your ideas and concerns and the thoughts that you're having, that you're doing that in a positive manner and that you're allowing them to understand that you do care about their child and you do want their child to be successful. The last type of formal meetings that you might have with families are parent meetings and or parent workshops. And these are times when you would bring all your families together that can participate to help build a sense of community. This is where you're going to talk about upcoming events in the program. You're going to ask the parents for suggestions on things that they would like to see their children learning, things that they would like to see happening in the classrooms. They might actually have a workshop where you could bring in trainers to talk about reading to young children or guidance techniques, how to have everyday activities that promote concepts such as letters and numbers, any host of topics that are important to parents in their upbringing of their children and in their assisting their child's education. You can offer things that allow the children or parents to make things that they can use with their children. It's really important that at these parent meetings or workshops that you make it comfortable for the families, that any communication is open and two-way communication. The families know that you're listening and taking in their ideas. It's really an important time to help your families build those important social skills and to give them tools for them to be successful as parents. It is also really important when you are planning these meetings or workshops that you take into consideration um, what is a time that is going to be convenient for your families, day of the week that will be convenient, a meeting location that is going to fit the number of families you're going to have participate and be comfortable. Um, it's important that you give the parents enough notice of when this is going to happen, and then a reminder that it's coming up and it's close. Maybe even just a couple days beforehand, contact your families in some method to get a head count for who is going to be attending the meeting. Make them fun. Always help the parents to have a good time while they're there, because the more that they enjoy what they're doing, the more likely they are to implement and use the information that they're getting. As an early childhood educator, it's really important that we realize and support that all of our families have hopes and dreams for their children. And even though they may not be the same hopes and dreams that we would have for our children or that we even have for their children, we need to support those families in those goals and those hopes and dreams that they have. And we need to help them learn to grow those. Not every parent comes with the knowledge of um, what they can do to help their child learn and grow and develop, and the parent has to be educated also along the way. And so we are a support system for that family, and we help them grow those goals and those dreams and those desires for their children to be successful. There are some things that we can do within the classroom to provide that support and that knowledge that the families need. You can always set up a resource library, and in that library you could include developmental milestones information or texts or books. You can include parenting books that help the parents to learn new ways of guiding children and interacting with their children. And you can allow the parents to either refer to these books or check these books out. But you can choose things of every topic that would be appropriate for your families. You can offer parenting assistance, where you could conduct those parent meetings and have people come in and talk with your families about parenting and child development and allow some support for that family. It's really important that you give the parents the ability to participate. And we've talked about that over and over. But what's really important for you to help these parents understand is that they are their child's first educator. And they are such an important force and influence in their child's education and future success. You want to help these parents see that you believe in them and you believe that they can do what is best for their child. You will encounter in your classroom families who have children who have some sort of special need. And for these families, they may require much more support than your other families. They may feel overwhelmed. They may need some encouragement and some positive feedback. They may need some assistance and some guidance to make sure that they are getting the best services and educational experience for their child. They may look to you for help in balancing life while taking care of their child and the needs that they have. It's real important for you that you keep a positive outlook with this child and this family, and that you give this family lots of positive feedback, giving them ideas on how their child is putting forth effort and growing and progressing. It's real important for them to hear those positive things, but it's also really even more important that you have that open communication and partnership so that you can be a team to get this child the best services possible. One of the big qualities that you need to make certain you're upholding in your work with the families is maintaining confidentiality. It's real important that you understand and that you respect that whatever a family shares with you or whatever you learn about a child or their family through your work with the child is to be kept confidential. The only people that you could share that information with might be people who work with the child and have a need to know basis. Anyone else, even coworkers in the center, that information should not be shared with them. In order to have a strong partnership with your families, they have to feel like they can trust you. And so, even if you're just sharing a positive piece of information, that can be a piece of information that your family did not want shared, and therefore it most certainly becomes a break of confidentiality. Um, it's real important for you to make sure that your families know that you cannot discuss other children in the classroom with them. Even if, for instance, their child is bitten, you can't share the name of the child who did the biting because that is confidential to that child and that parent. The same way with if the child is the one doing the biting and you have to inform their parent that they were biting, you are not able to share the name of the child who was bitten because that breaks the confidentiality of that child and their parent. So this is an ethical situation that you really have to remind yourself and think. If I share this information, is it a break of confidentiality? And if it is, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep this information confidential. To wrap up this discussion on families, we're going to review what is one of your larger assignments for this class, and it's called the Family Resource Guide. In your green book and your yellow book, this is described on page 14. It's actually called RC4, a Family Resource Guide, and within that you're going to include 4 different things. The first one is the name and contact information, so the phone number, website, etc., of a local agency that provides family counseling. In a lot of communities, CompCare will do this, or there may be a small agency that does family counseling. So just the name and the contact information of that agency. The second thing is the name and contact information of a translation service for families whose home language is other than English. You'll also want to include the name and contact information of a service that provides American Sign Language translation for families who need that. The third item is the name and contact information and a brief description of at least 2 agencies in the community where you live that provide resources and services for children with disabilities. Now, in most communities, your local public preschool and your Head Start program will both provide those services for preschool age children. For infant toddler age children, you could probably also do your early Head Start and then First Steps. Most communities have a First Steps program. The last item, you must find 3 or more websites, give the website address and name, a brief description of that website. What is the purpose of that website? Those websites need to provide current information to help families understand how children develop and learn. From each website, you are going to print a current article. The websites must have articles that help families understand the development and learning of either infants and toddlers, if you are an infant toddler candidate, or preschoolers, if you are a preschool candidate. For both preschool or infant toddler, at least one of the articles must relate to guidance. Now remember, these are articles that are written for families. So these are written for families to understand child development and child guidance. So the brief description you're going to write is a description of the website, but then you're printing an article from that website. Okay, and you're actually putting that article in there. There's also a description of this on Blackboard in the assignment section, and then we will review it at the end of class also to make sure that you understand that on the 14th.